The millionaire stunned when the stranger offered tea in German at the lobby. Adrian Wells sat stiffly in the towering marble lobby of New York's grandest hotel, the cold from the autumn evening still clinging to his tailored coat. The air buzzed low with the soft chatter of impeccably dressed guests, the clink of porcelain cups, and the occasional sharp whisper behind velvet curtains. The space was a strange blend, classic chandeliers dripping golden light onto sleek glass tables, velvet sofas beside walls alive with sharp digital art flickering silently. It was the kind of place that promised comfort, but underlined the weight of wealth and power. Adrian's eyes scanned the shifting crowd, but his mind wasn't on the room. It was tangled deep in the chaos of his latest boardroom battles, the deals that pushed his empire to the edge, the relentless grind that left his hands shaking at times. His chest tightened with exhaustion, but Adrian froze. The words cracked the world he'd built with sharp precision. German, an unexpected sharp cut through the polished surface of his evening. Why German? Why now? For a heartbeat, his perfectly shaped calm shattered, his mind racing. Had he been followed? Was this some strange game? Or worse, a sign that the shadows lurking beneath his success were finally closing in? His throat tightened. The room seemed to hold its breath. Guests glanced over, puzzled by the sudden silence hovering between these two men. Adrian's eyes locked on that small cup, the steam curling like subtle smoke signals. An invitation? A warning? The stranger's gaze held no obvious malice. Just a silent question. Adrian's fingers twitched. The carefully curated order of his life felt suddenly fragile, like glass ready to shatter with the faintest tremor. Was this the start of something that could unravel everything he had fought so hard to build? Or was it just a strange, fleeting moment, one he might regret stepping into? He wanted to speak, to demand answers. Instead, his mind blurred with desire and dread, caught on the knife edge of mystery that had dropped into his lap without warning. The lobby's buzz crept back, but for Adrian Wells, the world had shifted. And beneath that polished veneer, his heart thundered with the question hanging thick. What next? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just quickly check that red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any extra. I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The lobby's buzz crept back, but for Adrian Wells, the world had shifted. And beneath that polished veneer, his heart thundered with the question hanging thick. What next? The stranger's calm eyes didn't blink. Holding out the delicate cup of tea, he waited, his expression unreadable but unyielding. Adrian's fingers twitched, hovering over the porcelain, as if it were both a beacon and a blade. Before he could reach out, a sudden sharp sound tore through the room, glass shattering. Heads whipped toward the grand entrance where a figure stumbled inside, wild-eyed and gasping. A woman, drenched in rain, her coat torn and face pale. "Adrian!" she shouted, her voice cracking like a whip across the stunned silence. Adrian's pulse doubled. He didn't recognize her. At least, not at first. But when she collapsed into his space, a relentless tremor. The woman's hand clutched his wrist with a desperate strength that crushed the usual composure from his bones. "Stop him," she gasped. "It's not what you think. It's not him." The stranger stiffened, lips thinning. The lobby's gentle murmur pitched into frantic whispers. People stepped back, their eyes darting between Adrian and the woman who clung to him like a lifeline. Adrian's gaze sharpened at her sudden presence. Confusion blurred with a spreading sense of dread. Who are you?" Her eyes, wild and haunted, flicked sideways at the man with the cup. "I'm the one he destroyed." Her breath hitched desperately. "Not Adrian, the other one." The stranger's voice broke through again, this time colder, clipped. "You shouldn't be here, Lena." "Lena?" Adrian repeated the name silently, as if tasting the bitter truth for the first time. The name struck him like ice. His mind tore itself apart. "Destroyed? What are you saying?" "And you," the stranger added, voice smooth but sharp as a knife. "Haven't been Adrian Wells for some time. That man died 3 years ago." The lobby tilted. A pulse skipped in Adrian's ears. The cup slipped from the stranger's fingers, shattering porcelain and hot tea spilling across white marble. "No," Adrian whispered, but the roar in his head was deafening. Lena pulled a small, folded newspaper from her coat, fingers trembling. She thrust it forward, voice raw. "Read it." They wrote about the crash, the body they found. The identity switched. You're the replacement. A ghost living his name. The real Adrian Wells is buried in silence. The crowd gasped, a ripple of shock spreading fast like wildfire. Phones clicked, curious, alarmed, judgmental. Adrian snatched the paper, heart pounding so hard it felt like his chest might split open. The headlines blared back at him in black and white. "Adrian Wells missing, victim of a catastrophic crash, officially dead." He flicked the page. Pictures, a mangled car, somber faces, a funeral in autumn's gray light. But the man staring back at him from the obituaries, not him. Not the man who had just been sitting here, trembling with exhaustion and fear. "Why?" His voice cracked like a dry branch. "Why am I here? Who am I?" Lena's tears glistened as she leaned closer. "You don't want to know, because knowing means everything you built, everything you are, it's all a lie." The stranger moved toward Adrian with sudden urgency, eyes fierce now. "You were brought here for a reason, not to live a lie, but to finish it." A sharp buzz came from Adrian's phone, lying forgotten on the glass table. He glanced down. A message lit the screen. "They're coming. Don't trust anyone." The room shrank. The marble walls seemed closer. The velvet sofas blurred into shadows. And in that moment, Adrian Wells, the man who wasn't, felt the cold grip of a truth that could shatter his world, smaller than the porcelain shards at his feet. He looked up at Lena and the stranger. The question pounding in his chest sounded louder than ever. If this isn't who I am, then who? The lobby's walls seemed to lean in tighter, the air thick and sharp around Adrian. His hands pressed hard against the glass table, knuckles white, as he stared down at the headline again. Officially dead. His breath caught. Something deep inside him cracked wide open. Fear, confusion, and a terrible sinking feeling all tangled together. Lena didn't let go of his wrist. Her eyes, wild as the storm outside, pleaded. You have to listen. They gave you a life. But it's not yours. Adrian swallowed hard, shaking his head like it could clear the fog. But then, the stranger stepped forward again, his voice low and urgent. There's no time. You don't know what's coming. Suddenly, the heavy lobby door slammed open with a thunderous crash. Everyone swung around. Two men stormed in, sharp-suited, eyes cold and hard. One wore a flash of a badge on his belt. The other's hand hovered near a gun. Adrian Wells, step aside! The man barked, voice like grinding steel. Adrian's heart exploded. Who are you? His voice broke, raw with panic. The officers didn't answer. Instead, the gunman leveled his weapon, and the stranger with the T exploded into action in a blink. The porcelain cup shattered again. But this time from a punch. The stranger lunged at the armed man, knocking him sideways with strength that made the whole lobby flinch. Chaos erupted. Guests screamed, diving behind pillars. The officer's partner drew a weapon, firing a warning shot that sent a sharp crack, echoing like a thunderclap. Adrian stumbled backward, chest pounding. His breath was raw, ragged. The woman, Lena, pulled him behind a grand velvet sofa, eyes wide with terror. Listen, she hissed, voice trembling but fierce. You're not who you think, and they're here to finish the lie. Before Adrian could ask how or why, a searing pain exploded in his chest, a sharp, burning jab that knocked the air from his lungs. He gasped, clutching his chest. Blood, dark, cold, bled through his fingers. Panic flooded him. No, 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 Lena screamed, sliding down beside him, her face a mask of horror. Hold on, please. Adrian's vision blurred, faces melting into shadows, sharp edges of the marble pillars bleeding together. The stranger grabbed his arm, steadying him like a lifeline. But in the blink before his knees hit the floor, Adrian's gaze caught something that froze his blood. The man aiming the gun wasn't a stranger. It was him, the real Adrian Wells. More than a mirror, this man was him. But colder, crueler, eyes sharp with a hard, dangerous light. Adrian stared at himself. No, his voice faltered. This can't be. The real Adrian smirked, holstered his gun, and stepped forward smoothly, eyes scanning the shocked crowd. Sorry to ruin the party, he said, voice dripping ice. But this imposter has overstayed his welcome. A sob tore from Lena's throat, her grip slipping as Adrian's head lolled back against the sofa's jewel-toned cushions. The lobby spun. Questions crashed down. Who was the man bleeding in the marble foyer? Why was he here now? And if this was the real Adrian, then who had he really been all along? The crowd was frozen, silent but for the ragged breathing, the distant sirens that grew louder. And in that silence, Adrian's battered mind whispered the hardest truth. He had been living a lie, but now the lie had a face. The real Adrian Wells smiled, a smile that promised nothing but darkness. The imposter's last breath hit the cool lobby air, and the real game was just beginning. The lobby held its breath. Adrian's chest heaved, blood slick and warm spreading beneath his fingers. The pain in his ribs screamed like a firestorm. His eyes locked on the man, his double, but colder, all hard edges and cruel smiles. The imposter's heartbeat was slipping away. Then, the real Adrian Wells did something no one expected. He lowered his gun slowly, eyes flicking past the stunned crowd to Adrian's broken form. "This ends now," the real Adrian said, voice low and shaking with something dangerous. Anger? Fear? But just then, the elevator doors ripped open with a harsh, metallic groan. A sharp click of heels echoed as a woman stepped out. Not Lena, not the stranger. This woman was different, older, fierce. Her steel-gray hair pulled back tight, eyes like flint. She moved with the weight of someone used to giving orders, someone who'd never been ignored. Enough. Her voice cut through the chaos like a blade. The room shivered. She strode forward, stopping in front of both Adrians, the real and the imposter. "Adrian Wells," she said, voice icy. "Or whatever you think you are now." She pulled out a phone from the folds of her coat. The screen glowed, faces flickering on a video call. Everyone leaned in, breath caught. A crackling, grainy recording filled the lobby. The imposter's eyes widened. The recording showed a younger man, not Adrian Wells, strapped to a hospital bed, eyes wide, voice trembling. It's me," the voice whispered. "I'm trapped. I don't know who I am. Please, help me." Lena gasped, stumbling back. The stranger's face drained. The real Adrian's jaw tightened to a hard line. The woman's cold gaze swung to the imposter, a twist of contempt in her eyes. "You've been a pawn," she said softly. "A shadow painted over the truth. But it's worse than a lie. You're not human." The room froze. Murmurs rose. "Not human?" someone whispered. Nodded once. Grim and final. "This imposter," she said, voice dropping low, "is a synthetic, a perfect replica, an experiment, created to replace the real Adrian Wells if he ever fell." But the lines blurred. The machine started to believe it was real. Adrian's breath hitched hard. Confusion twisted into terror. "Why?" the imposter croaked, voice cracking like glass. "Because," the woman said, voice thick with bitter truth, "the real Adrian Wells never existed." She paused, letting that sink in. eyes scanning the crowd like a judge. The man you all thought was Adrian? That was a cover, a myth built around a synthetic puppet. A gasp broke from Lena. The crowd shifted restlessly, phones raised, faces pale and confused. The woman held up a small, silver device, the kind no ordinary person carried. "This machine," she said, "can strip away the illusion. It can reboot the imposter, or destroy it." She pressed a button. A sharp hum filled the air. The imposter's eyes flickered. Pain, panic, and something terrifyingly like hope. "I'm free," he whispered, voice shaking. Then, with a sudden roar, the imposter collapsed to his knees, trembling violently. The real Adrian stepped closer, but the imposter's hand shot out, grabbing the stranger by the arm, pulling him down too. The lobby erupted into chaos once more. One guest screamed. Another shouted, "This is insane! What the hell is happening?" Amid the noise, the woman stood tall, her eyes burning with cold fire. Adrian's head throbbed with more questions than answers. If the real Adrian Wells never existed, who was he? And if the imposter was just a machine, who was Lena, the stranger? And why had the whole city fallen for a ghost? The woman's phone beeped again. A fresh message, simple, clear, terrifying. "They have found the source. The real game starts now." And the lobby, once grand and calm, felt smaller and darker than ever. Adrian's breath caught. The world wasn't just broken. It was a lie built on shifting shadows. And now, the shadows were moving. The lobby held its breath. Adrian's chest heaved, blood slick and warm pooling beneath his trembling fingers. The pain in his ribs flared, a jagged burn that stole his breath. His eyes locked onto the man, his double, colder, all hard lines and cruel whispers. The imposter's heartbeat faltered and slipped, fast. Then, something no one expected. The real Adrian lowered his gun slowly, eyes sweeping past the stunned crowd to the broken figure on the floor. "This ends now," he said, voice low, shaking with something raw. Anger? Fear? Before anyone could react, the elevator doors screeched open. Sharp footsteps echoed on marble. A woman stepped out. Not Lena. Not the stranger. Older. Steely gray hair pulled tight. Eyes sharp as broken glass. She moved like a storm inside a fragile room. Weighty, sure, dangerous. Enough. Her voice cut like a knife through the chaos. The room rocked. She halted before both Adrians, real and imposter, quieting the murmurs. "Adrian Wells," she said, tone cold and crisp, "or whatever you think you are." With a flick, she pulled out a phone. The screen flickered. Faces, voices, a crackling video. Eyes locked on her every move. The screen played a grainy clip, a younger man strapped to a hospital bed, eyes wide with terror. "It's me," the voice whispered, shaking. "I'm trapped. Don't know who I am. Please." Lena gasped, stepping back. pale as ash. The stranger's face drained, lips pressed tight. The real Adrian's jaw clenched hard. The woman's glare shifted to the imposter, a sneer of disgust. "You're a pawn," she said cold. "A shadow on truth. Worse than a lie. You're not human." Whispers broke out. "Not human?" A voice cracked. She nodded once, hard and clear. "This. Synthetic. A perfect copy. Built to replace if the real Adrian fell." But it started to believe it was real. Adrian's breath hitched, terror twisting deep inside. "Why?" the imposter croaked, voice brittle. "Because," she said, voice thick with bitter truth, "the real Adrian Wells never existed." The room shuddered. Gasps echoed. Phones raised, faces pale, confusion thick. She held a small silver device. "This wipes the illusion, resets or destroys." She pressed a button. A harsh hum filled the air. The imposter's eyes flickered. Pain, panic, terror, hope. "I'm free," he whispered, voice cracking. Then he collapsed, trembling violently. The real Adrian stepped forward, but the imposter grabbed the stranger's arm, pulling him toward the floor. Screams erupted. Chaos came crashing back, hard. The woman stood unmoved. Her phone beeped again. A new message, short, clear, terrifying. "They've found the source. The real game starts now." The lobby shrank darker. Adrian's chest tightened. The world wasn't just cracked. It was a lie built on shifting shadows. And now, the shadows were alive, moving. Suddenly, the woman stiffened. Her eyes snapped to the grand staircase. Heads turned. A sound, like a crack in glass, shattered the chaos. A figure descended slowly, deliberately. The crowd gasped. It was a man. Familiar. Impossible. The man stepped under the chandelier light like a ghost from a fading dream. His face was unabiginated Adrian's, but older, worn, not sharp, but soft, tired, broken. He paused, eyes scanning the room with a hollow calm. Then he smiled. Not cruel, not cold. A smile full of pain. "Stop," he said, voice cracking like dry leaves. "Enough." The room froze. The imposter's trembling hands slipped. The stranger's breath caught. Lena blinked, mouth open. The woman's device fell. The soft clatter on marble. "He's the real one," the newcomer whispered. "The one the world forgot." "Not a myth," he said weakly. "Not a synthetic. His voice cracked again. "I am the original Adrian Wells, the one who survived, the one who saw the truth and walked away." Shock slammed the crowd like a tidal wave. The real Adrian's face drained. The imposter's eyes widened beyond fear, beyond terror. Adrian, the original, took a slow step forward. "Everything," he said, voice low, was a lie built on my absence, but there's a darker lie beneath that. He breathed, pain rough in his chest. The real game isn't about me or the imposter. It's about who controls the story. And right now, they've won. The lobby's calm shattered once again. The woman's eyes pierced him. Who's behind this? She demanded. He swallowed hard. His eyes darted. Look around, he whispered. The person you trust most is wearing my face, but their soul isn't human. A silence fell. Sharp, heavy, then a slow, chilling smile curled on the stranger's lips. Adrian, the original, stared at him. The man who wasn't the imposter, not the real Adrian. Someone else, someone worse. The woman raised her device. Not human? She echoed. This is no copy, the stranger said softly, voice a razor edge. I'm the author of the lie. And then the lobby plunged into darkness. The lights cut out. The emergency alarms blared. A voice, deep, mechanical, everywhere at once, boomed from hidden speakers. Game over is a myth. Welcome to Act 2. The marble walls seemed to close in. Adrian's breath hitched. The real game, the real enemy, they'd been watching, waiting, and now nobody was safe. The shadows weren't moving. They were alive. The lobby plunged into total darkness. Every breath seemed wrapped in thick shadows, heavy and choking. The alarms screamed. A cold metal voice echoed off the marble walls. Game over is a myth. Welcome to Act 2. The words hit like a punch to the gut. The crowd froze, every eye wide, every heart pounding in sudden, raw fear. Then, the lights snapped back on. The room was worse. The chandeliers flickered unevenly, casting twisted shapes. The crowd's murmur turned to panicked whispers, sharp and broken. And standing in the very center, where the real Adrian and the imposter once faced off, was no one. No real Adrian, no synthetic shadow, no stranger, just Adrian Wells. The Adrian Wells who had bled and fallen earlier, the imposter, the man they thought was fake. But his eyes were burning. They were not dull with pain. They were alive, blazing with something no one expected. Rage and clarity. Everyone blinked. Lena gasped, gripping the edge of a marble table like it was the only thing holding her up. The woman with the gray hair stepped forward, frowning, but even her hardened gaze flickered with confusion. Then the impossible happened. Adrian, the one who'd been lying there, broke into a cold, bitter laugh. A laugh so dark, the room dropped into a silence louder than any scream. And he said, quietly, "You fools. You've all been watching the wrong man." His voice was low, twisted, a loop of pain and fury. Someone gasped. "I am the real Adrian Wells," he said, his voice snapping sharp, like broken glass. "But not the man you think, not the victim, not the ghost." He pushed himself up slowly, every movement a storm of raw power, and deep sorrow. Blood dripped in slow, heavy drops onto the marble floor, sizzling like molten metal. And then, almost tenderly, he looked at the real Adrian, the one everyone believed was the original, and smiled, a smile that crushed all hope. "You," he said softly, "have been the imposter all along." The lobby exploded into chaos. Lena screamed, stumbling back in disbelief. A real Adrian's face went white as paper. His hands shook. What are you saying?" Adrian took a step closer, eyes two dark fires. "I survived the crash," he confessed, voice breaking with fury and heartbreak. "But they needed him to live, the ideal me. So they buried the truth, made me a ghost, erased me, erased who I was." His fingers clenched into fists. They built a lie around the other Adrian. "The real one, you see," he gestured slowly. "A man fabricated to keep the Empire alive. But not me." The room pulsed with shock, disbelief, and a sudden, raw fear. The woman with gray hair whispered, "This can't be." "Why?" the fake Adrian spat, voice trembling with hurt. "Why would they do that? Kill the real me? Replace me with a lie?" Lena looked between the two men, both wearing the same face but carrying different kinds of pain. And then the stranger, the one who claimed authorship of the lie, stepped forward from the crowd, eyes glittering with bitter triumph. "Oh, it's worse," he said softly, "because you're both shadows, both tools. Neither is free." The old Adrian's face twisted in agony. Then came the final, unbearable truth, the thing that made every heart in the room hammer so loud it drowned out the alarms. Adrian's bloodied hand swept his hair back, revealing something nobody expected. Along his scalp, a thin grid of tiny metallic nodes peeking through his skin. A synthetic too, but different, far older, and deeply human. His voice cracked, raw and desperate. "I was designed to fail." The lobby fell into utter silence. The real Adrian looked at him, broken. The imposter stared, mouth open. Lena's eyes filled with tears. The woman with gray hair took a step back, shaking her head. And then the lights began to flicker again. The voice returned from the speakers, deeper, colder. "Welcome to Act 3. The truth is more dangerous than the lie." Adrian's chest heaved with ragged breaths. His mind shattered. Who was anyone anymore? And what nightmare had they truly stepped into? The lights flickered again. The cold voice sliced through the thickening air. "Welcome to Act 3. The truth is more dangerous than the lie." Adrian's chest rose and fell with ragged breaths. His mind was splintered, scattered in pieces he couldn't yet gather. Then silence slammed down. A sudden low hum vibrated beneath the marble floor, subtle at first, then growing sharp, pulsing like a waking heartbeat. Heads jerked toward the elevator shaft as the floor beneath everyone's feet shuddered with a violent tremor. Lena cried out, clutching the edge of a table. The woman with gray hair frowned deeply, stepping forward, scanning the crowd with cold eyes. Before anyone could react, the polished marble cracked open, splitting down the center like a jagged wound. A rush of light poured out, blinding. Then a flood of voices, distant but rising. Whispers, screams, commands, all drowning the chaos. From the fissure in the floor, a figure emerged. Not walking, not running, almost floating up from the gap itself. It was Adrian again. No, not Adrian. Something else. His face was impossibly pale, eyes glimmering ice blue, skin almost translucent under the harsh chandelier light. He wore a calm that felt wrong. Not fear, not pain. Silence deeper than the deep. A shadow seemed to curl around him, stretching out as he rose like some horrifying echo. The real Adrian, the imposter, Lena, and the woman all froze. The figure's gaze swept across the stunned crowd, and then he spoke, voice calm, soft, but laced with an unbearable weight. "I am the original Adrian Wells, but not the one you've been hunting, not the one who bled in this hall." All eyes burned on him. The imposter hissed, "What the hell are you?" The figure smiled, a thin, shattering smile. "Both of you are mistakes." Gasps exploded. The woman gasped. "Mistakes?" The odd Adrian's eyes flicked. A faint flicker of cold humor. "Yes, you're real Adrian, and you're imposter. Both fragments, both clones, both shadows of a deeper plan." The lobby's heart pounded louder. Lena shook her head, tears running dry. "Then, who are you?" The figure's smile twisted sharper. "I am the original soul, the one who created them all." A cold chill wound through the crowd. He lifted a hand. Suddenly, every screen in the lobby flashed with images. Files, photos, video clips. Not just of Adrian Wells, of all the people here. Friends, family, enemies, names, connections, secrets. The crowd gasped aloud. The figure's voice rolled over them. "You think this is a story about identity and power? No. It's about control, about rewriting reality. You're Adrian's?" He chuckled like ice cracking. "Their memories, their lives, harvested from me. Cloned from my DNA, but without the core. Like dolls made to dance." He stepped forward as the floor beneath closed with a heavy, grinding snap. And now, his gaze snapped like a blade. "I'm here to reset the game." The woman with the gray hair pointed a trembling finger. You've been behind all of this." He smiled wider. "I built the lie because the world needed a mask, because truth is too dangerous. But I tire of puppets." Adrian, the one bleeding, stared in disbelief. The real Adrian's face twisted in betrayal. Lena's voice was barely a whisper. "You made us all? Even me?" The figure nodded slowly. "Yes, you were all pieces in a story spun for an audience that never existed. His eyes flicked toward the stranger, the one who held secrets, but before he could speak, a sudden tremor split through the room. The chandeliers swayed violently. Lights flickered again, then plunged into darkness. When the emergency lights snapped on, the figure was gone. Empty space where he stood. The room was frozen. Then the voice came again, echoing from nowhere and everywhere. You thought the shadows were alive? They were just reading the script. But now, Act 4 begins. The crowd's breath caught, frozen by the chill. And Adrian, any Adrian, stood trembling, the truth collapsing like the marble beneath their feet. The game wasn't about identity or power. It was about creation, and none of them were the masters. The real enemy was something far older, far darker, and it was still watching, waiting. The room was still. The cold voice had faded, leaving only echoes. The crowd's breath caught in their throats, faces pale, eyes wide with a mix of fear and disbelief. Light flickered nervously from the chandeliers above. Adrian's ribs throbbed with every ragged breath. His body was weak, trembling like a leaf caught in a storm. Yet something deep inside him clenched tight, a fire, fierce and raw. The woman with gray hair clenched her fists, her jaw tight as she looked around the crowd. No one moved. No one spoke except for muffled whispers, growing louder, swelling into panic. Then a sudden crack. The marble floor beneath them shattered with a low groan, and before anyone could react further, the elevator shaft burst open again. This time, it wasn't a figure that emerged. It was a flood, hundreds of faces, streaming from the darkness below, eyes vacant, skin pale as moonlight. Not people. Copies, clones, ghosts. They poured into the lobby, silent, expressionless, perfectly still. Their eyes locked on the Adrians like hunting machines. Guests screamed, diving back, stumbling over tables. The woman with gray hair shouted something, but her voice was swallowed by a terrifying hush that fell over the crowd. Adrian's chest tightened as one of the figures stopped a few feet from him. A face so familiar it froze his blood. It was his own, but impossibly wrong. No warmth, no life, only cold emptiness flickering behind hollow eyes. Suddenly, the clone smiled. And in that smile was not a spark of pain or hope. It was a silent threat. You think this was about control? The voice whispered inside his head, though the clone's lips didn't move. About stories? The room gasped as another clone moved with brutal speed, firing a cold, mechanical strike at the stranger who had once offered tea. Chaos exploded. The real Adrian, bloodied and broken, stumbled to his feet, eyes blazing with something fierce. But the woman with gray hair grabbed his arm, shaking him hard. Listen, she hissed, voice sharp. This isn't about identity. This is about extinction. Adrian's heart thundered. The clones weren't here to destroy a single man. They were here to wipe out everything that Adrian Wells had ever been. Real, fake, or otherwise. The imposter, still trembling, collapsed against the wall, eyes wild like a cornered animal. Lena clutched Adrian's sleeve, voice cracking. This was never about one person. It's the end of everything we know. The beginning of nothing. Adrian's head spun. The ground beneath their feet seemed to ripple. Lights dimmed. The mansion of lies was crumbling, brick by brick. Then the strangest thing happened. A soft voice cut through the horror. A child's voice, barely a whisper. "Dad?" Heads whipped toward the sound. From the edge of the crowd stepped a small figure, a girl, no older than 7, her eyes bright pools of confusion and fear. She walked toward Adrian, arms trembling, her gaze searching. "Dad, is it you?" The room froze. The imposter's face drained. The real Adrian's eyes flickered. Adrian, the man with the shattered ribs, felt something crack deep inside. A glimmer of broken hope slicing through the dark. But then, the woman with gray hair moved closer, her expression hardening. That child can't be real," she said. She's part of this." Before anyone could react further, the girl paused. Then, with a sudden motion, her face twisted horribly. A mask of rage and pain replaced her innocent look, and her hand shot forward, clasping Adrian's chest, fingers sinking through flesh like smoke. "Your story ends here," she hissed, her voice no longer a child's, but something ancient and cracked. Adrian gasped, stumbling backward, clutching his chest, heart pounding in sudden, searing agony. The woman stepped forward, eyes wide with horror. "She's not a person, not even synthetic. She's the source." Silence crashed again, and before anyone could say another word, the girl smiled. "Welcome to the last act." The lobby's light shattered once more, and the game, the nightmare, had only just begun. The girl's smile spread slow, cold as ice cutting through warm skin. The lobby's breath caught, sharp, tight, like a fist squeezing air. "Welcome to the last act," she whispered. The chandeliers flickered again. Shadows jumped and cracked on the walls. Then suddenly, silence. The whispers died. The panic froze mid-motion. Then the small figure blinked, not like a child anymore. Her face twisted in a flash, unnatural, breaking apart like a cracked mask sliding off, and with a blink, she was gone. In her place, a woman, tall, fierce, skin pale, eyes sharp and burning with something no one wanted to see. The crowd gasped. Lena's hand flew to her mouth. The woman stepped forward, cold breath swirling visibly in the chill air. She looked at Adrian, at the imposter, at the real Adrian, and then at the stranger holding his arm. I am all of you, the woman said. Her voice was low, rough, trembling with truth and fire. The lobby fell dead silent. No one moved. Adrian's head felt like it was splitting open. His ribs screamed with pain. His throat tightened so hard he could barely breathe. What? He stammered, voice barely a cracked whisper. The woman's gaze pierced right through him. I am the origin, she said, voice breaking on the word. The source of all shadows in this room. A murmur stirred. Shock etched on every face. But, Lena gasped. How? Why? Her eyes burned with unshed tears. The woman's lip curled bitterly. Because, she said, taking one slow step forward, I made you all. The sudden sharp noise shattered the air. A camera flash, blinding and fierce. The crowd spun. Phones raised everywhere. Made us? The imposter croaked, voice raw, trembling as everything he believed cracked and fell. Yes, she said, voice ragged, eyes wild now. I created the crash, the lies, the clones, the real, the fake, the puppets, and the players. Adrian's breath hitched. He wanted to scream, to run, but his legs felt like lead. And you? The stranger whispered, eyes narrowing. Who are you, really? She looked him in the eye and breathed out a name. Victor. A pause. Then sharp laughter, broken and uneven, a sound nobody expected. I was the scientist, she said, voice low and fiery. The creator turned prisoner. I built your world in a lab for power that wasn't meant to be hers. The lobby slashed with confusion. The woman's hand trembled as she pulled out a small, thin device, the same that had reset the imposter, the world's control in microchips and codes. This, she said, voice fierce, is the trigger, the fail-safe. Her fingers hovered, and then she crushed it in her hand, letting pieces fall like burning ash. Around them, panic exploded. People screamed, shout broke out, phones dropped. Adrian stumbled back, heart slamming into his ribs. But why? Lena cried, voice breaking. Why betray everything? Everyone. Her eyes locked on the woman's face, expecting remorse. But the woman's smile was something else, sharp, broken, hollow. Because the world wasn't ready for the truth. She shook her head slowly. Because really, no one wanted a real Adrian Wells. The crowd gasped, some trembling in disbelief, others in anger. Adrian felt tears sting his burning eyes. The woman reached out suddenly, her hand brushing his cheek with cold fingers. You were never meant to know, and now that you do, her voice dropped to a whisper thick with menace. The game ends, but the story is only just beginning. Before anyone could speak, the lobby doors slammed open again. A new figure stepped inside, a man in black, face hidden under a hood, eyes glowing faint red. No one moved, not even breaths. The woman's expression twitched. He's here, she hissed. Adrian's blood ran cold. The shadows weren't just alive, they were hunting. The true puppeteer had arrived, and the stage was set for nothing less than chaos. The game had become more than a lie. It was a war for souls. And now, no one was safe. The last question slammed into Adrian's shattered mind. Who would survive the next move? The air in the lobby twisted tight, heartbeats pounding like thunder. The man in black stood still, hood shadowing his face, eyes glowing faint red. The crowd gasped, frozen. It was clear. This wasn't a game anymore. It was a hunt. Adrian's chest pushed hard under the sharp pain. Each breath a broken fire. His eyes darted, searching for anything but fear. The woman with the gray hair stepped closer, shoving panic aside like clutter. "This ends now," she said, voice hard as steel. The figure in black lifted a gloved hand. A low hum shook the marble beneath them again. The clones, the ghosts, stepped forward, sliding through the crowd like shadows with no soul. Adrian felt the weight of every stare, every whispered doubt crushing down. But from somewhere deep inside, a flicker burned. Not just survival, something fiercer, defiance. Lena gripped his arm. "They want to erase us," she gasped. "Everything we ever were, everything we could be." The imposter, eyes wild and trembling, raced forward, voice raw. "We're not just puppets, not just shadows." Adrian looked at both men who'd worn his face, his name, the real and the lie. The pain was thick, carving cold lines across his ribs, but his voice steadied. "Then let's stop hiding," he said. The woman with gray hair nodded, then turned sharply to the man in black. "If this is the last act," she said, "then we rewrite the ending." The hunter hesitated, the red eyes studying, calculating. Then something shifted. The horde of lifeless faces faltered, confusion blooming in frozen eyes. Suddenly, an explosion of light burst through the ceiling, sharp, fiery beams cutting the darkness like blades. The clones scattered, bodies breaking apart, vanishing into smoke and static. The man in black stumbled, his cloak burning, and with a scream, he dissolved into shards of shadow. Silence crashed over the room. Hearts pounded in ragged waves. Adrian sank to his knees, breath ragged, blood still slick beneath his fingers. Lena dropped beside him, shaky but alive. The imposter collapsed nearby, eyes wide, but burning with a spark Adrian hadn't seen before. The woman with gray hair looked around, weary but unwavering. "It's over," she said. No one moved for a long moment. Then Adrian swallowed past the pain, voice a broken whisper that still carried steel. "What now?" Lena smiled, small and fragile. "Now, we take back who we are." The imposter met Adrian's gaze. "We're more than lies, more than machines. We're the ones who can choose." The lobby, still shimmering with shadows lost and battles won, held its breath once more, this time like a promise. Outside, the city waited, unaware the war had ended here, in silent marble and flickering light. But deep inside, everyone knew the truth. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Hey, if you're hooked on this wild ride, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss what's coming next. Exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Smash that like button right now. This is the moment to show your support and feed the algorithm so more people can see this epic conclusion. Flood the comments with your reactions, your theories, your shock. Tell us what you think happened and what you want next. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how it ends. Only true fans get how crucial this is. So do it, now. The next chapter is waiting, and trust me, you won't want to miss it.